Welcome to Speaking of Sports. I'm your host, Jared Slack. It's the month of October, one of the greatest sports months of the year. You have NFL and college football, NBA in less than a month, hockey, and MLB Playoffs. It's going to be a really fun October. This week I'll go over American League and National League wildcard games, make my way over to the playoffs and playoff matchups, and I'll give you my picks for the World Series. Then I will review some Week 4 games in the NFL and preview some Week 5 games. And of course, I'll give you the Week 4 perfect lineup. I'm going to start with Tuesday night's National League wildcard game between the Nationals and Brewers. Matt Scherzer gave up 2 home runs early to make the game 3-1 Brewers. But other than that, he had a really good game. He pitched really well. He seemed locked in the whole game. Overall, in Matt Scherzer's career, he's pitched 22 innings, and he has an insane ERA of .45. That's less than a half of a run per outing. But the real magic happened in the bottom of the 8th. With the bases loaded for the Nationals, the batter hits the ball to right field, and the right fielder lets the ball go through its legs, Bill Buckner style. And the Nationals score 3 runs and win the game 3-4. It was such a crazy playoff atmosphere there at the Nationals' home field, and that's why the MLB Playoffs is up there with the best. Now on to Wednesday night's game, the American League wildcard game between Oakland Athletics and Tampa Bay Rays. This wasn't much of a game. Tampa Bay won the game 5-1. But here's a cool note that I heard the other day. In the last 20 years, last 2 decades, the A's have had 10 postseason appearances, but they have only won 1 playoff game. Not 1 series, 1 playoff game was 1 wild card. And I believe that was early in 2000s. So that's a pretty crazy stat to learn. They're a great regular season game, but terrible postseason team. Now I'm going to give you the wild card. The postseason MLB bracket that's coming up. You have the Yankees versus the Twins. This can be a great powerhouse matchup. I do believe the Yankees are going to overcome and move on to the American League Championship game. Then you have, with the Rays beating the A's, now you have Houston versus Tampa Bay. And I think Houston just has way too good of a team this year to have any type of slowdown whatsoever. I pick Houston there. So you have Yankees Astros in the American League Championship, and I'm going to have the Astros going to the World Series from the American League. Now from the National League, the Washington Nationals and the LA Dodgers. The Nationals have a really good team this year. But unfortunate for them, they're going against the Dodgers, and they're a great team, one of the best teams in the league. I have them moving on, and you also have the Cardinals and the Braves. The Braves have a really good staff and a really good pitching staff, really good team overall. But I do think that the Dodgers are going to come out on top this round, and that team's just way too good to be beaten that early. And then so you're going to have the Astros and the Dodgers in the World Series. This is going to be a great matchup, a fun matchup. We've seen it before. We've seen the Dodgers come. If they come this year, this is going to be the 3rd straight year they came. And as good as the Astros team is, and I want to say that they're going to win, I just cannot see a team losing back-to-back years in the World Series. My pick for the World Series is going to be the Dodgers. Okay, now let's review some Week 4 NFL highlights. I'm going to start with the Chiefs and Lions. This was a good game. It was a very unusual game for Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense. Pat Mahomes had 315 yards, which seems normal, but he didn't have any touchdowns. However, the Chiefs still ended up winning this game 34-30. Okay, Browns and Ravens. This was an exciting one. Baker Mayfield threw for 342 yards and 1 touchdown. This was for their division. The Browns won 40-25, which is really maybe quiet down some doubters, some Baker Mayfield Browns doubters. They put up a lot of points this past week. Patriots and Bills, two undefeated teams going into Week 4. It looked like the Bills were going to come out with this one. They had the home field advantage. Both defenses were going crazy. This is a great defensive game, but Josh Allen took a hit to the head late in the game, and it took him out. And unfortunately for them, the Patriots won the game 16-10. You got Bucs-Rams, by far the highest scoring game. In the fourth quarter alone, both teams totaled up 44 points. Jameis Winston threw for 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Bucs won 55-40. Okay, now on to the Saints-Cowboys game held in New Orleans. This was a very unfortunate game for the Cowboys. They did not hold up to their potential, and you could see clearly what their game plan was going into the game, but they just weren't able to execute it. It looked as if they broke the huddle early and or didn't even have a huddle, relying on Dak and Kellen Moore to make the play in the while the clock was just going down. They could just read the defense, go off of it. But I think that crowd was too loud to understand the play. You could see early in the game, Dak had to go to each individual player, tell him what the play was. He had to tell Zeke behind him what the play was. It didn't look like this offense was in sync from the very beginning. And their defense did great. Their defense was awesome. They held them to 0 touchdowns. They held Alvin Kamara to under 90 yards total. That was a very good defensive game, but it just didn't work out well for the Cowboys. They were still able to keep it within one possession to where they were trying to go for that game-winning drive late in the fourth quarter, but they just weren't able to make it happen. It didn't seem like the Cowboys weak, but I do think they're going to bounce back in the Week 5 game against the Packers. Okay, now on to the Week 5 game against the Packers. Anytime you face Aaron Rodgers, it seems like it's going to be a nightmare. But this time, he doesn't have his number one receiver. He's without a couple linemen. They've had a great defensive lineman and a defense overall throughout this year. But I think that the Dallas offense is going to be not so much embarrassed from last week, but they learned a lesson from last week, and they're going to take a step up, and they're going to be at home. So I think this is going to be a good game, and for the Cowboys. Also, Michael Gallup's going to be back in the rotation. He practiced on Tuesday and Wednesday. He's a full go. I don't know if he's going to be limited in the game on Sunday, but he's going to be there, and this is going to open up more for Amari Cooper, which you didn't see much of last week. He's kind of blanketed by the cornerbacks last week. You're going to see more from Randall Cobb, an ex-Packer. So this is going to be a great game. I think Dak's going to have a good game. I think Zeke was a little bit embarrassed about what happened last week, only rushing for 35 yards. But I think this Cowboys offense is going to take a step up and do a lot better. Okay, now on to your Week 4 fantasy football perfect lineup. Start with the quarterback. I mentioned earlier Jameis Winston. He had a great game. He had 385 yards, 4 touchdowns, just 1 pick, and for 29.3 points. Your number 1 running back was Nick Chubb with 165 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 18 yards to the air on 3 receptions for 39.3 points. Running back Christian McCaffrey had 39 rushing yards and 1 TD. He had 10 receptions for 86 yards on 33.9 points. Wide receiver Chris Godwin, 12 receptions, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns on 41.2 points. Wide receiver Robert Woods, 13 receptions, 164 yards, 29.4 points. Tight end Austin Hooper, 9 receptions, 130 yards for 22 points. Your flex position, Jordan Howard, running back, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns from the ground, 3 receptions, 28 yards, 1 touchdown from the air, 32.5 points. Your kicker, Matt Gay, with 15 points. And your defense, the New York Giants, with 3 sacks, 4 interceptions, they had 1 touchdown, allowed only 3 points, and scored a total of 24 points. Okay, that totals up to be around 267 total points. If you you don't recognize some of these names because some of them are maybe number 2 or number 3 receivers, and so you really never know who's going to blow up that week. So go put your picks in for a daily fantasy, and you might win yourself some money. That's all I have for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Speaking of Sports. I'm your host, Jared Slack. Make sure to listen to my podcast on the Mute Mogul Radio Show on Facebook. It comes on at 12 on Fridays in the lunch hour. Other than that, my video comes on at regular time, Friday at 2 p.m. Just thank you for tuning in to Speaking of Sports. I've been your host, Jared Slack.